Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, January 31st, the end of the first month of 2025, and we have a lot to get into today. The NBA-All-Star team has officially been rounded out. The reserves were announced. We'll go over the starters, the reserves, and a couple of snubs as well, as there always are on the NBA-All-Star teams. Then we'll get into a little bit of NFL drama. Receivers. Where will they go? Liam Coen and the Bucs continue to have their falling out. Get into some ESPN and NHL money stuff as we get later on into the show. Lots to talk about today. But before we get into the NBA, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. You can use that super chat feature. If you do, leave a chat or a message. I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. Feel free to do that. Appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, January 31st. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NBA All-Star game here. This one is the biggest thing that's been going on in the world of sports today, right? The All-Star teams announced. This is going to be a really different version than we've ever seen. They're going to have the crew from inside the NBA be the honorary GMs for the three teams, and then the fourth team be comprised of those young guys, these young stars, first and second year guys, the rising stars. Whoever wins that game will be the fourth one in the round robin tournament that they're going to do in the All-Star game. But getting to the rosters, starting off in the Eastern Conference, we'll start with the starters and then we'll get into the reserves. The New York Knicks had two starters in the East. They had Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. And both of these guys have had incredible seasons. In the Eastern Conference, especially for the starting positions, I don't think there really was too much of a question for who was going to end up starting. I think the fact that you have those two New York guys, you add Donovan Mitchell, who's been the leader of the best team on the East this year, and you add Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who have been amazing for their teams. If you're going to take one of those guys out, I think it would be Jason Tatum here, but all of them deserve to be starters here, to see all of these guys come out there and get those starting spots, some of them for the first time in their careers, has been really cool to see. But getting into the reserves, the breaking news here, the Jaylen Brown, the second Boston player to find his way onto the All-Star roster. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, that deadly duo over there, making an appearance in the Eastern Conference. Again, this isn't going to be the final team, but next to him, you have Pascal Siakam, who's been the lead guy over there in Indiana. The Indiana Pacers started off the season slow, Tyrese Halliburton not having the kind of season that you would expect or need Tyrese Halliburton to have, but Pascal Siakam has stepped up huge, and he has been the main reason why they were able to steady the ship a little bit. Of course, Hallie has stepped up, played pretty good basketball in his own right, is a guy that could potentially even be considered a snub. Not sure if he's going to be there, but I love that they added Pascal Siakam in there. He's had a great year so far. Darius Garland, the second Cleveland Cavalier to find their way into the All-Star game, and you got that whole backcourt in there now. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, those two guys have been instrumental. Them, along with their big men, one of which making the All-Star game with them, and Evan Mobley, have been huge in showing in making this team the best that it can be. Right, Evan Mobley, a first-time All-Star, one of 6 guys to make the All-Star game for the first time this in their career. Excuse me. We get into a game with we get into the games with these guys, right? And they have really stepped up, right? They were a 4 seed last year. Kenny Atkinson comes in as the new head coach, and now they're the number 1 seed in the East. Not too much has changed really as far as the roster in there, but what they've been able to do step up this season is huge, and I'm glad that they get 3 guys. That's the most of any team in either the West or the Eastern Conference this year. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell being a starter. You also have Cade Cunningham, his first time ever making the All-Star team. Cade Cunningham has been the guy in Detroit. And the Detroit Pistons have had a season to remember. After having one of the worst seasons in the history of the NBA, they go out there and now they're sitting at around 500. That's about as big of a shift in momentum as you can possibly expect for a team to have. It's been really cool to see this team, this group of guys get so much better. Again, just with the addition of a new head coach. Him and Tobias Harris have come in and completely changed the way that this team looks, the way that this team feels, and the way that this team plays. Cade Cunningham, his first All-Star game of his career, and that's super exciting for the fans over there in Detroit. They've got a great one over there. Damian Lillard, the second star over there in Milwaukee, finds his way to play with his partner in crime in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those two guys find their way onto the All-Star team. Dame's been having a really good offensive season. Of course he has. He makes his way onto the All-Star team for the 9th time of his career. And this is an Eastern Conference team that I think is really stacked, especially when you add that final guy, Tyler Hero. And some people I've heard have wanted Tyler Hero to not make the list. They've said that he's the weakest guy there. But what Tyler Hero's been able to do with this Miami team to keep them at 500 overall is crazy, right? Tyler Hero has been able to deal with all the noise that Jimmy Butler and this Heat team have been going through, right? He's been able to deal with a down year from Bam Adebayo. He's been able to deal with all of that, really stepped up, had career highs in just about every single category, and he's been the guy leading this Heat team. This Heat team, without their two stars really having great performances, would be nowhere without Tyler Hero. So to say that he doesn't deserve to be an All-Star is crazy to me. There are plenty of other guys out there that I think did deserve to be All-Stars, but I think overall, they got this list pretty close to right. There were a couple snubs out there in the East, especially with the guards. LaMelo Ball is an interesting one because LaMelo Ball won the fan vote at the guard position. He had the most amount of votes out of every single guard in the NBA. He ends up having more points, assists, and if you're just going off the stats like that, than everybody else. But that Charlotte Hornets team is not very good. He doesn't make the reserves, and I can understand you thinking him a snub, but he's a guy that I don't think should have gotten in over a couple of these guys. I like LaMelo Ball a lot, and he's played really good basketball, but I do understand why they didn't put him in. Trae Young is another name that's been tossed around as far as snubs in the Eastern Conference go. Trae Young leads the league in assists, and he continues to get snubbed a lot of years in a row now. He doesn't have that kind of all-star pedigree that a lot of people with what he's been able to do, I think, deserve to have. That's someone that I think is a snub, but again, I'm not putting him in over Tyler Hero. You can talk to me about potentially putting him in over a guy like Pascal Siakam, maybe a Jaylen Brown, potentially Cade Cunningham. But at the end of the day, I don't think these guys are really getting in over the other ones. It's just kind of an overwhelming amount of talent. That's the reason that these guys are snubs, rather than the fact that the guys they got in didn't deserve to get in. Scotty Barnes, another one of those guys. He made an All-Star game last year, but one of the bigger ones that I've seen around the East as well is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey has been the lone member of the big three for the Philadelphia 76ers to be consistently out there and consistently playing. He averages 27 points a game, and he's a guy that I think should have gotten a lot more credit in an All-Star nod. Again, This is a 76ers team that's dealt with a lot of injuries. They haven't been as successful. And a lot of basketball is politics, right? A lot of basketball and a lot of these things is, hey, if your team is good, you're going to have a better shot. But all of these guys deserve to get it. Tyrese Maxey, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young. But at the end of the day, there's just not enough spots for them. There just isn't. And it's unfortunate. I understand why some people think they might be better than Tyler Hero if you look at the stats, but what Tyler Hero has been able to do as a one-man army on that Heat team, I think deserves to be kept in. At the end of the day, I think they got these All-Star teams as close to correct as you possibly can. You're never going to be able to escape All-Star selection with everybody happy. You're never going to be able to escape All-Star selection with no panic, with no rioting from fans and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think this is one of the more accurate ones of all time, and at least in a very long time. And I don't think there were too many snubs that you couldn't justify them not being in there over a couple other guys. But let me know what you think. Do you think any of these guys really were snubs? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the Western Conference. They have a lot of old heads in the starting lineup. Some people think that they shouldn't be starting. Some people think there were a couple big snubs over there as well. We'll talk about that and much more coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.